tools you need as a beginner. So, and what I mean by that is you've got your first bike, you want to be able to do the simple maintenance things like changing your own brakes, maybe changing your oil, all the normal stuff that you have to do for pre-ride maintenance and whatnot. So people have been messaging me asking for what, as a beginner, do I need to absolutely get going with motorcycles. And most of us who are probably watching this have these tools, and these are pretty simple tools, and I think every guy should probably have these tools somewhere. It's not a lot of tools, but it's a good start. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff laid out here on the bench, guys. You know, and in no particular order is this the first tool you need to buy to the last tool. Each one of these tools has the same amount of value or weight as any other tool on the bench. So we'll simply start by talking about a decent set of screwdrivers. So you can pick up a kit like this. This was, I think, a Black Friday sale. I didn't really need it, but the price was good, so I bought it. I think I paid 20 bucks for a really good set. Like, well, not really good. These aren't Snap-on, but a decent set of screwdrivers, different sizes. We start talking about the Phillips head, the Japanese industrial standard screwdrivers. They are great to have in a specific motorcycle tool, but as a beginner, just getting yourself a decent set of screwdrivers. All the different sizes, you know, some have the bigger tips for bigger screws, and some are really fine. It's important to buy that decent set, but you don't have to spend a lot of money, but get the essentials, you know, some decent flathead screwdrivers, some decent Phillips, some decent screwdrivers in general that you need. Another thing that guys really overlook is hammers, and there's how many different hammers out there, but you don't need to have all the different hammers. A normal metal hammer, something that's got some heft to it that you can drive something a good. If you don't own a hammer, go out to Princess Auto or Harbor Freight and buy some ball peen hammers. We've got a dead blow hammer. We use this constantly on the bike, driving axles out, whatnot. We also have a rubber hammer, a little softer than the dead blow, so we don't damage any threads. How many times I've used these hammers is it's hard to even give them a number 1 tool or a number 10 tool. These are just tools. Pliers. Okay, we're going to talk about pliers. A set of linesman pliers. It's good for pushing on clips or getting a hold of things. Obviously, a set of channel locks for being able to push calipers back in place. You'll see I use them all the time on the videos. Needle nose pliers, a decent set. These are just normal standard size. I think you should have a standard size of needle nose pliers. You can get long ones and short ones, small ones. Now there's all sorts of pliers. We got specialty pliers, little side cutters, bigger side cutters, wire strippers, channel locks, special pliers for putting in C-clips. I don't think these are essential off the start. You're probably not going to be doing those types of jobs when you first start with your first bike, but a good set of pliers to help you get some reach and grab of some parts. But we have drawers of pliers. All of them have a different purpose, and I'll use all of them at different points. A good set of wrenches, a decent set of wrenches. And now there's all sorts of sizes of wrenches. When we talk wrenches, like you can see, I have a pile of wrenches. These are just standard wrenches. And then in the next drawer, I keep Imperial wrenches. So all my metric stuff, and down here, and all my Imperial stuff up in the top, you know, and there's everything from gear wrenches to just your standard wrenches. But a normal wrench set, like just a normal set, you know, decent size so you get some leverage. That's a 5/8, but you buy the set, and sets are pretty reasonable priced. So I think everybody should have a good set of wrenches. And we could go on for days about sockets and ratchets and extensions and all sorts of stuff. You can see this is just one of my drawers of sockets and extensions. There's lots of drawers in my toolbox that have different sockets, different sizes. These have the Allen keys on them. This set's not really expensive. It's just a decent set that I like to have in my toolbox because it came with the The storage, you know, I've had lots of different sockets over the years, but you don't need to buy this extensive of a kit. We'll go back to our table here, and you can buy, this is an impact socket set, so I use them with my impact gun, but you don't need to buy impact sockets either. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that lots of companies, whether it's Craftsman, Stanley, up here in Canada, we get a lot of Mastercraft stuff from our Canadian Tire. So they all sell sets, and you can get all the different socket sets with a couple ratchets. I don't own one of those anymore, probably because the case is broke and I've just thrown them in the toolbox. But they're great, and you can take them with you. They fold up. You can put them in your car when you go to the track. This is a stand-up, like T-bar set of Allen keys. So we'll just grab one out. It's got a ball point on the one end, and then the normal part on the other end. So you can shove that in and have some leverage to break it free. You don't need a set like this. Even the little hand sets will get you going. But having a decent set of Allen keys that you can, those I use for speed. If I need one for more stronger, I go to my socket set and I get one on a ratchet. But having a set of Allen keys that you can use on your bikes, there's a ton of spots you can use them. Simple measuring devices. I think that's a really important tool to have as a beginner. I'm sure your dad, or you probably have a tape measure laying around. I like tape measures that work like this, that one is straight imperial, so you get your inches, feet, stuff like that. So you can measure what size bolt it is. And then I also always have a metric tape measure that measures out in millimeters, so that you can measure your part, because let's face it, most of these Japanese bikes, if not all of them, use metric bolts. So you can see that's a 10 mil bolt, that's a 12 mil bolt, just by simply holding it against or measuring the distance in something in millimeters. It's good to have. It's good to have the two types of tape measures. Tape measures are pretty cheap, and probably the basic way to start measuring. Another key item when it comes to maintenance on your dirt bike is probably one of the most overlooked things, and you can do it cheaply, is an air pump. I take this air pump, this bicycle pump basically is what you would call it. I take it to the track every time I go to be able to adjust my tire pressure. It's simple, easy to use. It's got a simple gauge on it. Now I don't trust the gauge 100%, but it's a low reading gauge. So it shows me 10 pounds of pressure and stuff like that. This is my fill gauge off of, for my air compressor. And it has a pretty low gauge. I can see it's pretty accurate in the lower range. But to be really accurate, you should get a low pressure reader. I have one, but it's a really high end one. And I didn't want to include it in this list when you can go buy a lower quality one, cheaper, that reads up to 20 pounds. That's what you want it to read max. Because let's face it, you're not putting 40 pounds of pressure in your dirt bike tire, or at least I hope you aren't. I think another big important thing when it comes to garages that guys overlook is storage. This is something you should have when you're working on your dirt bike. You can see I have little dishes, and there's nuts and bolts in here from taking apart bikes and putting them back together. Lots of little dishes. You can buy cheap, not for better lack of a word, Tupperware containers. These ones aren't Tupperware. My mother would have killed me if I used Tupperware for my parts because it's so expensive. But like an old butter dish, you know, butter comes in this, and that's a great container to keep stuff separate. Maybe I got the subframe bolts in here, and I got my clutch cover bolts here, and stuff like that. You know, all my chain stuff maybe is in there when I'm taking the bike apart. And you can label this stuff by putting a piece of tape on it and writing on the tape saying, you know, rear brake, whatever you need to do. But having lots of options for storage containers, an old ice cream container, they work really good. So I got all sorts of bolts from my last teardown. I don't usually reuse bolts. I usually buy a bolt kit, really freshens the bike up. So I have lots of extra bolts, and I don't throw these away. There's nothing wrong with these bolts. I might need one later on in a build, but having containers available for when I take them apart is crucial to having stuff in your garage. You don't need to buy fancy magnetic trays and stuff like that. They're nice to haves, but just simple containers that you can put nuts and bolts in when you take them off the bike so you don't lose them. So another really good tool to have that I think everybody should have, and they're not much money, is a set of picks. My fat fingers aren't able, and I don't have any fingernails, so it's hard for me to get O-rings off. But with these picks, you know, you got a 90-degree one, a little hook one, and a straight one. You can get in and get under those O-rings and peel them off. They make special O-ring tools. Obviously, they're really good for what they do, but these picks come in so handy so many times to allow people to do their job. I use them constantly. Even though I have those specialty tools, these ones are essential for beginners. These are a great tool to have for beginners, and they're not much money. The whole top drawer of my toolbox is nothing but pens, pencils, markers, writing devices, so that I can record information. I take a measurement, I want to write it down. I need to make a mark on the side of something. I'll use a paint marker. I'll use a Sharpie. I'll write stuff down on cardboard, whatever I have in order to record the information that I need. So having some pens and pencils in your garage is pretty crucial, some paper to write on, you know. And in the next drawer, these are things you can't live without, is some knives. So I have lots of different knives. You know, obviously this isn't just for my dirt bikes. I have a pair of scissors if I need to cut gaskets or do anything like that. A little pick, you know, specialty knives, razor blades, all sorts of stuff's in this drawer. You guys will see me working on all sorts of stuff periodically, and I'm constantly using files, you know, a round file to be able to adjust something. And you know, like I bought those parts from Polysport in one of my videos, and I had to grind the heck out of it because it just didn't fit. So having some different files on hand. Files are pretty cheap. I think everybody should have a few and learn how to use them. Now, at the top of the scale of probably price-wise, like this is a snap-on one. By no means do you need to have a snap-on 3/8 torque wrench. That's a very expensive tool that you probably don't want to put out. Now, I use it constantly. I trust it. We've had it checked over time to make sure it's still to spec for torque, but I constantly am using my 3/8 torque wrench. But a must-have is a 1/2-inch drive torque wrench for beginners. I feel like when you need a 1/2-inch drive to tighten that rear axle, tighten that front axle when you're going to be taking your rear tire off the bike, maybe changing your brake pads, doing all sorts of stuff. You're going to be adjusting your chain. You're going to be loosening that axle, and every manufacturer has a spec that everything needs to be torqued at. If a guy tells you, oh, I've done it a lot, I know what 12 pounds feels like, he's lying. He does not have an idea of what 12 pounds feels like. Maybe you do. You have some sort of super sensitive hand that I don't, but I can't tell 12 from 15 or 10 from 20. The amount is so minute when you're torquing something down. Once you start using a torque wrench, you can get a better feel for it, but why not just use a torque wrench and be accurate? I think having a torque wrench is crucial to working on dirt bikes. I think we've covered about 10 or 15 tools, guys, that I think everybody should have as a beginner dirt bike rider, owner, gonna do some of your own maintenance. I don't think you should have to take your dirt bike to the dealership to change the oil. I think you should be able to do that in your garage, and hopefully this channel will help you get there if you're not there yet. And I know some of this stuff can be pretty intimidating as a new rider. When I first started out, I didn't own a lift, I didn't own an engine stand, and it took me a long time to get to that point. But having a good set of screwdrivers, some hammers, you know, all the things we've talked about, wrenches, sockets, Allen keys, a torque wrench. A torque wrench is probably one of the overlooked tools that most people probably don't have that I think they should buy. So if you don't have a 1/2-inch drive torque wrench, I think you should buy one and buy a socket, probably a 32 mil, that's gonna fit your back axle nut. That is one of the most important things, is getting that right torque level on that when you adjust your chain. And you should be adjusting your chain before riding. So anyway, guys, if you like the video, like and subscribe. If you have any comments about tools I overlooked as a new person that you don't own tools, this is a hard list for me to make because it's been a long time since I was new to owning tools. So But let me know down below. Leave it in the comments. It'll help a lot of other guys too, and everybody will appreciate it. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Hate themselves in society, so I let them speak quietly while my actions speak